Today, we're going to be talking about what to ask before hiring a property manager. And I have one of our absolute leaders here, Miss Kate Winter, joining us on the show. Welcome, Kate.
Hi, guys. Thank you. Thanks, Greg. Excited to be here.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the weekly edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show. I'm your host, Greg Cohen. Today, we are missing Pablo. He is not here with us, but I'm going to try to do my best to fill his shoes here. So Kate is just one of the most amazing people. If you ever get the opportunity to meet Kate, and you'll see here, if you ever get the opportunity to meet her in person, she always has a smile on her face. She is always happy. She always brightens your day. And she is a badass when it comes to property management, okay? Kate's been on our team for 8 years. She's a manager of our property management team. And during that time, Kate has overseen JWB property management starting from, 8 years ago, we had about 1,500 doors under management. What's the number now, right?
5,700.
5,700. So if you would like to talk to somebody who knows what it's like to go from 1,500 doors under management to 5,700, we've got the right person here. She's overseen our team growing from roughly about maybe 10 folks on the property management team. Now we have about 35 folks on our property management team. And of course, at JWB, we have roughly 140 folks here, all under one roof, all under Kate's leadership and direction. So Kate, we are super, super happy to have you. Thank you for being here.
Wow, very nice of you. Thank you so much.
Of course. So we have this topic that we take, from our audience. So when we hear that there's these same questions that are being asked, we try to, of course, create a show about it. And today's show is going to be all about that. All right, guys. Well, we're going to jump right into the show today. And what I thought would be most helpful for all of us here is if we position the show in a way where we have this incredible resource. How about I take the lens of a rental property investor and I start to either ask the questions that a rental property investor might ask, or at least kind of ask the questions that we should be asking as rental property investors, and let Kate educate us all on the types of questions we should be asking. And of course, what is that standard answer that you're looking for? It's maybe not a standard answer. I can tell you it's not a standard answer out there, but what's the standard that you should hold and say, you know what, that's a property management company that can perform well for my assets and make this a great experience. So I'm gonna do my best to do that. And we're gonna let Kate just be herself and help us all understand how important this is as a property manager. You ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right. So I think, in my travels of speaking with investors across the country, getting to meet new investors here on the show, and there are certain themes. And I think most of the time when people think about hiring a property manager, it's usually too late. It's usually after they've already purchased a home, or maybe they've had a negative experience trying to manage their own property. And so they're behind in the game. And then what I also notice is they tend to ask the wrong type of questions right off the bat. What would your experience be with maybe when people come to us on the property management side looking for property managers? And then what types of questions do they ask? And are they right ones or are they wrong ones?
Yeah, I have experienced this lots of times at like networking events where potential clients are coming up to us, owners of properties, and the first questions are always like hands down, what do you charge? Like, what are your management fees? What do you charge on maintenance? Like, what does that all look like? What am I going to owe you for this? And that matters. I mean, you do need to know what those numbers are, but at the end of the day, that doesn't cover the most important pieces of like how that property management business is really going to perform for you. So yes, should be asking those, but should be asking probably a little bit more than just that.
Yeah. So your normal property management questions that you may be thinking about asking, sure, they're important. You have to ask those. But if those are the questions that you're making decisions on, you're focusing on the wrong things, I think, by those questions. So those might be questions about management fees. A common one would be, what do you charge on maintenance items and things of that nature? Everything about like something that's transactional is usually what gets asked on the front end, right? Usually tied to money. But we know that ultimately here, this is an investment that you aim to hold on to for a full market cycle, 10 to 20 years. So if people are just asking these transactional items that are tied to money, what are the types of questions that they're not asking? What questions would you recommend they start to ask in addition to those types of questions?
Well, I think it's important to know what your goals are as an owner, right? And what you're wanting the outcome of this property management company, and seeing how, hey, what are your goals as a team? How is your team structured? Like, how is what you do as a business and how your team performs, how does that align with my goals for you managing my property, and making sure that there's alignment within those things?
Have you ever been asked that at a networking event?
No. No, I haven't.
When you get asked these questions that are more transactional about management fees and other things like that, this is how I feel. Sometimes I'm looking at that person who's asking the question, I'm just like, oh, you know what? If you're just only asking these questions, your chances of making a good property management decision is pretty slim to none.
Yeah, it's so true. I'm like, you got to be asking about me. Like, what do I do? What does my team do? How can we perform for you? Like, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, we'll get the blocking and tackling questions asked and answered now, but what we really want to do through this conversation is help you see the questions that you really should be asking that you're probably not thinking about asking. So standard things like management fees, right?
Yep.
Do you want to tell people about our management fee structure just to kind of get it out of the way?
I think something very important that is a value of us in our business is we don't get paid unless owners get paid. So our management fees are 10%, and that's only on rent collected, not rent charged. So that's a really important question to ask. Do you collect management fees on rent charge? Which means, let's say that your home is sitting vacant. Let's say it's vacant for 2 months. That property management company may be charged 10% every month when they're not collecting rent. That is not something we do. So I think that those are important clarifying things. And also, like I said, making sure that there's alignment in those two areas.
100%. Goal alignment is something that I know we're going to talk a lot about today, because that's what we talk about all the time within the walls of JW.
Yep.
That's how this company was built. It's about doing things different, because the normal property management model actually doesn't have alignment of goals with the people that are being charged for those services, which is a challenge. So, all right, so we charge 10% of gross rents collected. That's kind of a standard fee out there. It's very important, as you mentioned, to only be charged when we're actually collecting rent. Right. So that's a takeaway. Talk about maintenance upcharges. Do most property management companies charge for maintenance items on top of the maintenance item?
Yes, they do. So I'm probably getting ahead of myself here, but I was at Jax REIA. It's a local investment group in Jacksonville. And an investor was like, I don't understand. I've been told that there are companies out there and they will always tell you to replace your HVAC system. Like always, always, always. And I don't understand. I had this like light bulb in my head. I'm like, oh, it's because they make money when you have maintenance. And that is not the way we're structured when it comes to work orders that come up when the home is occupied. We have goals to keep costs low for you. We have goals to get second opinions and see if we don't have to replace it. Maybe we can repair it, and that will keep your costs lower for you. Like they're all tied to the investor and their returns. So important to ask if they charge on maintenance, and if there's an upcharge on that. A lot of companies will charge 10 to 20% in addition to whatever maintenance costs you're going to be spending.
There you go. So kind of industry standard around there, as Kate mentioned, is an upcharge on whatever your maintenance item is. On top of that, a 10 to 20% upcharge. That is the property management company's fee. Okay, so very important to ask if that is a part of that. Now that's a transactional item, but it's also a goal alignment item. And that's why it's so important to understand that, right? Well, the way that we would look at this is, ultimately we want to help you reach a financial outcome. We want to avoid the most painful parts for our clients. Is a maintenance issue a painful part as an investor?
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
Why are we going to pour salt on the wound and then charge a 10% or 20%, upcharge on top of that? Because then it also leads to questions about the recommendations that we make and how we solve maintenance items. We don't want you thinking that every time that you do need an HVAC, we don't want you thinking, well, JWB is going to make $300 on that or $500 on that. So these things are, important for us to understand. But the real thing is, what questions do we need to ask about goal alignment so that you know how your property manager is thinking and making decisions and incentivized? Would you agree?
Yes, agreed.
All right. So let's talk about those things that are more about goal alignment. I would say incentives. What would you say if you could construct a conversation at a local networking group for somebody to come up to you and say, hey, I'm interested in hiring a property manager, and they could ask you a question right off the bat? What type of question would you like for them to ask?
I think it would be really important for them to ask, like, how is your team structured? What are their goals? How are they aligned with what my goals are? And then kind of break it down from there, right? Like what are you looking for on the maintenance side of things? What are you looking for when it comes to rent collection, and making sure that there's alignment in all of those areas?
Gotcha. What would you say a bad answer is to that?
From a property management.
From a property management lens. What's something to watch out for? If somebody was to say, hey, help me understand more about goals, your team structure, your alignment, how is the property manager making more money when me as the investor is making more money? What's a flop answer for a property manager?
Well, if they don't track any of that, then that is like a red flag.
Mm-hmm.
You want a business that cares about collecting rent for their clients. You want a business that cares about doing right by the client when it comes to maintenance items. And if there's no goals or data or anything that is tracking that, then how are you to know that they are tracking those things, that they have you in mind, and that they're correcting and identifying things when there are issues, and making sure that there can be improvements? Like, if there is nothing there, like, whoop, red flag number one.
How many times have you seen another property management company that doesn't track anything that's important?
Pretty often.
Yeah.
They're a little overwhelmed by how much we track.
Is it hard for us to benchmark against other companies because
Yes.
people just don't track anything?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So it's and really what it is, it's not many people, especially 10 plus years ago, set out to create the very best property management company.
Mm-hmm.
You had a lot of real estate agents that became accidental property managers. Mm-hmm. And then you had a lot of people that were investors or whatnot and became accidental property managers. Yep. And you really didn't have companies that set out to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to build this business the right way. Mm-hmm. It's very, very small percentage. Yeah. And so as we now are in this place right now where there actually are many bright minds, many companies that are putting a lot of resources to it, you can start to see the difference between the old way of doing property management and a different way of doing property management, which is exciting for the owner. It's exciting for the investor now that you do have options for companies that do track and do measure and do build a business successfully. But like Kate mentioned, make sure you're asking these questions and looking for answers like this. If you see an answer where nobody's tracking anything, kind of put them in the bucket of old way of doing it, probably a broken property management model that's probably not going to lead you to your success.
Certainly.
So, all right. So let's talk about some of these things that you measure here. How do you know as JWB property management, how do you know that you are performing for that asset and creating a great experience for the owner and the resident? What are the things you measure?
A lot of things. Okay. There is so much that we measure. On the maintenance side of things, I mean, we're measuring how long work orders are open for, because we think that tracks experience, and also how soon we're resolving an issue for a client. We track on the front end, on the maintenance side of things, when people are calling in any maintenance items, seeing how many items we're able to help them with troubleshooting. So similar to that question we were talking about earlier, how do you handle maintenance? Do you upcharge on maintenance, right? Some companies are incentivized to do more maintenance. Our team is incentivized to solve a problem for a resident without having to send a vendor out. So what that means is, let's say that you call in and you have power out to a room. Okay, let's go walk over to your electrical panel. Let's open up that breaker box. Let's flip that switch. Like, very simple, easy things that I always tell my team. I always tell any resident that I've spoken with, like, I would never ask you to do anything that I am not comfortable doing. I'm not a handy person, and doing little things like that. So that is an example of something that we are always pushing to do. It's never anything that would be that I don't want to cause any alarm. Like, we're not telling them to get the tools out and open up your AC. No, not at all. But those little things are really there to help prevent and also provide a really great resident experience at the same time, because then they're not having to have a vendor come out. So that's two things on the maintenance side. You want me to dive into?
I think I know how much you love managing towards success based on metrics. I know how much I see you smile every time that we're presenting in TMM and you're sharing the metrics. So why don't you share maybe some of the most important metrics that you think, and then give the answer for what is kind of the standard? What should you look for as a response as well?
Sure. I mean, on the maintenance side of things, we track what we call it solved over the phone, meaning how many work orders that we open are we able to have the resident solve with quick troubleshooting. So that is something that we track. Last year in 2024, we solved, I think it was 3,800 work orders over the phone. That was 20% or maybe 22% of work orders that were opened last year. So
Yeah.
something we're really, really proud of.
Looking at those stats, 3,817 work orders solved over the phone.
Yeah.
So that's not even total work orders. That's 22% of all of the work orders.
Yes.
Right.
Those are ones we didn't have to send a vendor out because they were able to reset a breaker, switch out a light bulb, check their thermostat settings on their AC machine. Simple things like that.
What was the cost on those 3,817 work orders to the investor?
So if you were to equate that, where we'd have to send out vendors for all of those, you could average that out to over $380,000 that clients would have been charged if we hadn't been able to successfully troubleshoot those.
Clients were charged $0. And Kate and her team saved our clients over $380,000. And it comes back to alignment of goals. Alignment of goals. We understand that long-term, we want to get to financial outcomes for our clients. We understand we want to avoid the pain points. We understand that in order for us to accomplish our financial goals, we need to help you accomplish your financial goals so that you come back and buy more houses from us. We don't look at property management as the main profit center within JWB. So that allows us to make the decision that we're not going to mark up maintenance costs. That allows us to make the decision that we're going to have great leaders in place that are going to manage to metrics. One of those metrics is how do we drive 22% of all work orders to be solved over the phone so that the owner at the end of the day is charged $0. Whatever questions you need to ask to get that type of an answer from a property management company are the questions that you should be asking before hiring, okay? Yeah. But very few people ask those questions.
Yes. They wouldn't think to ask, right?
You never would know. Yeah. You never would know. And this is why this kind of paradigm shift of the old way of doing property management to the new way of doing it is very important to understand, right? This also goes back to the vertically integrated business model. What we should probably point out is most property management companies simply don't have the opportunity to not charge maintenance markups.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Because a normal property management company doesn't sell properties. They don't have other income streams, and their income streams are largely maintenance markups, tenant placement fees, and then of course, management fees. Yep. But if you ask a normal property management company who's probably struggling to make ends meet anyway, to just cut off a significant part of their revenue by charging $0 on maintenance markups, they're just not going to do it. Right. Right. So you got to invest in those questions that help you understand the alignment, the model that your potential property management company is employing. Yeah. Way more than just what's your management fee. And with like maintenance specifically, like their goals, our goals, the answer you would want to hear is that they're tied to protecting your asset, protecting your returns. And like, that's what our team's goals are, where a lot of companies, their goals, and I don't know that they would share it with you, are to make money from maintenance, which means they are charging you more maintenance. 100%. All right, let's talk about another one of your favorite metrics. Share why you love this metric. What is kind of a like the gold standard? What should people be expecting when they ask the question, and maybe how it aligns? Sure. Well, renewals. Renewals. I knew we were going there. He said, which one's my favorite? Well, it's renewals. 100%. Something, I mean, when I first started, like I was very quickly drawn to renewals. I was like, I grew up playing sports. I like loved the achievement of like scoring a goal. And like, that's what renewals was for me. And so it was fun to kind of grow that passion with it. But really with renewals, you want to ask, what's your renewal percentage? Like, how many leases are you renewing every year out of like total leases that are ending? If they don't have an answer, concern, because they should care about keeping your home occupied. There are a lot of companies out there that make their most money off maintenance, like we talked about, and then tenant placement fees. So they actually might want that resident to move out. And that we actively work so hard to make sure that we've exhausted every last effort so that they renew their lease, they stay in their home. It's a reflection that they're happy. And then it's a win, obviously, for the client to not have that home go vacant, which is a hard time.
when that happens. So we have goals surrounding making sure that we're renewing as many leases as possible every single year.
What's our target this year for the percentage of leases renewed?
Our target this year is 75%. So far, we're at 76.55%.
She knows her numbers.
We're on track.
76% of leases renewed is the most I have ever heard in property management. Now, part of that is because whenever I ask other property management company, what is your percentage of lease renewed? It comes back to the problem that they don't track it.
Yeah.
And then the other part of it is if they do track it, I'm hearing percentages of like 30% or 40%.
Yeah.
I mean, 75%. So how, again, we're trying to position this as questions for people to ask so that they can get the outcome.
Yes.
What questions should people ask about the way that you get leases renewed, or how do you guys get leases renewed at such a high clip?
I think a good way to go about it would say, okay, let's say one lease is signed, lease ends on this date. Like, what is your team going to do before that lease ends? Like, when are they going to reach out? Are they going to try to renew? Or maybe you don't even ask if they try to renew. You just say, what do you do before lease ends? Like, our answer would hands down be, we're renewing that lease and we're reaching out to them 6 months before their lease ends to try to get that conversation started and get them renewed as soon as possible. If they are saying, well, we're going to prep them for move out, make sure we get ready, and they're already talking about move out, that's probably a red flag there because their priorities aren't aligned and wanting them to stay in the home.
Yep. 100%. Okay. So then in my experience as a rental property investor, some people may say, hey, you know what? We're going to keep people in the lease, but we're going to give them reduced rent to do it. How would you respond to that? Is that an acceptable response?
They're keeping people in the lease, but they're going to lower the rent.
Yeah, or they're not going to charge market rent for the lease, lease renewal.
We are always charging market rent. So that is something that is a great question to ask. Thank you. Yes, you definitely want to ask, like, what are you charging when a lease ends and you're renewing that lease? How do you determine what that rent's going to be? So we pull comparable market analysis to see what rent would be at that time. And we make sure when we're renewing that we renew at that market rent amount. So lowering rent is not something that you may want to hear, but sometimes if worse comes to worse, I understand that sometimes that may be the only option to keep a resident.
Sure. And you know what? Listen, not everything is perfect. And sometimes you want your property manager to make a decision that is in the best interest of you and your resident. And we want to have some flexibility to do that. But I think what's really prevalent in the property management world is property managers place a high value on keeping homes rented. And keeping homes rented is important, but keeping homes rented is not the same as delivering a return on investment.
Right.
What we really want to do is to keep our homes rented and charge market rent.
Yes.
That's very hard to do. And so you have to ask those questions to be able to make sure that you're getting to that place where in your mind, you're saying, okay, this team is going to do both of those things. We also need to make sure, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, I know how much you lead our resident experiences, but we have a resident that we're taking care of. Can you shed some light on how we are able to keep homes rented at market rent and to take care of residents on the other side?
Yeah, I mean, for us, like everything boils down to the resident's experience in the home. So like that has to be priority number one always, right? We are not going to renew a lease if they had a poor experience while they were in the home, if they had a bad move-in experience, if they had a bad experience with maintenance, if they had a bad experience with who knows what. I think communication is so important when they're reaching out, making sure that we are all over getting them whatever responses that they need and that we're prioritizing that communication. And then we are also tracking the resident experience as a goal as well and as a stat. And I don't know if you want me to dive into that, but
it's your world.
Yeah, I'll dive into it. So we track NPS, stands for Net Promoter Score. So it's a way that you can track customer satisfaction. It's not something, I mean, that's question number one is ask a property management company, do you track resident satisfaction, NPS, anything like that? Their answer is going to be no. We do. We care a lot about our residents' experience. And so we send this survey out to them every 6 months. It asks how likely they are to refer JWB, property management, to friends or family, and we track it from there. So that is something where if we see a low score come through, we're on top of it. We're calling them right away and we're saying, hey, what went wrong? What can we do to earn a 10 from you next time? And then anyone who gives a great score, amazing, and making sure we continue providing that experience that we are with all residents, right?
I love it. I'm just kind of taking some notes as a rental property investor here. And I'm in my head as this conversation is going, I'm like, okay, cool. we got the blocking and tackling questions that'll come up through the conversation, but the real ones are right off the bat, how do I understand that goals are aligned? So there's kind of like a goals alignment, section of questions that you probably want to figure out. That'll lead you to team structure. That'll lead you to metrics that the property management company cares about. And all of that should, lead to a place of delivering a good return on investment for you. If you ask those questions, I think you're on the right path. But then there's a whole set of questions that are related to how do we take care of residents on the other side?
Yeah.
Because if your property management company does not equally care about the resident experience as well as the investor experience is not going to be great.
Yep.
Right. So what are some of those? So some of those questions to dive into the resident experience that an investor might ask. They should ask about resident NPS.
Yeah.
Right. Net promoter score. What else should they ask to make sure that the property manager is also providing a world-class experience for residents?
Yeah, I think what is your relationship like with your residents? Like, what do you do to prioritize their experience and make sure that they're happy in the home, or addressing their needs and making them want to stay and renew their lease at the end of things? Not really sure that that's a common one that people are asking.
Well, what are some of the things that an investor should expect from that property manager to improve the resident experience? Maybe not every property manager has to do what JWB does, but what are some of the activities that you should expect that an investor should expect a property manager to do?
I mean, we have a set of service standards for our team and our residents and what they can expect from us. So for us, we're saying you should expect a response if there's an emergency within 24 business hours, without a doubt. If there is a non-emergency, for sure, 24 to 48 business hours. We want to under-promise, over-deliver, ideally get back within 24 hours if it's not an emergency. Making sure we're available on the phones. We pride ourselves in being able to answer 90% of phone calls. So being able to, one, be available for our residents is very important. So you want to make sure that that is something that you hear as a prioritization. One, we track those experiences, net promoter score, obviously hearing for how we actually have it as statistics. It's something that we clearly care about because we are tracking it. We have goals for it. Not something that you may hear in other places. And then we also do a lot for our residents. I mean, we have budgets in place that you wouldn't hear about in other property management businesses. We have something called a love budget, and our property managers each have $100 a month, and they get to do whatever they want with that money. So we had a resident who recently just had a baby. We went onto their registry and we ordered them something from their registry. Like, what property management business out there is doing that? We had a resident who just turned 100 years old, and their property manager went to their door and gave them flowers and a balloon. Like, those are the little things that make me so proud and so happy, that are the things that we do to protect the residents' experience and make sure that it's at the forefront.
100%. And it's really wonderful that we have Kate here to share the resident experience side of this, because as investors, we tend to only think from the investor lens. But unless we have this opportunity to build up these relationships on the resident side, the investor side doesn't work.
Right.
And just the scale at which we're able to impact lives truly from the resident lens is incredible. We have about 1,700 investors with JWB, but we have about 5,700 homes that we manage, which is probably about 8,000 to 9,000 residents.
Yes.
That we provide the housing situation, and the home, of course, is a foundation for all of our lives. So if we think about real impact, right, it's from both lenses. It's the investor lens and how much good we can do from the resident lens. And it's just not talked about nearly enough in investor circles.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to provide your clients with the results that you want if the residents aren't happy in the home, right? Like, you've got to protect their experience. Otherwise, the client's experience will suffer as a result.
100%. All right. So we've talked, I think this is good. I didn't know exactly how our conversation was going to go today, but I think if we can kind of help folks understand, work a little bit beyond the blocking and tackling, start to understand goal alignment, right? Because then that will lead you to, in your mind, you'll say, hey, you know what? They can deliver a good return on investment for me. Then working down the line, hey, how do I make sure I check the box to know that they're not just taking care of me as the investor, they're also taking care of that resident on the other side in a similar fashion. I think that's really helpful. I also think that there's more here that we can kind of help other folks kind of understand how we do it a little bit differently at JWB.
Yes.
So I would love to dive into that. Before I do that, though, it's about halfway in. And guys, I already see a number of questions here. So this is awesome. When we have Kate here, I expected us to get a ton of questions here, so we are. What I would encourage, if you have any questions, go ahead and fire them into the Q&A. Let's go through maybe half the questions right now and knock those out, and we'll save the rest before the end of the show. But we're going to leave maybe 5 or 10 minutes for us to go into a little bit of a different way of doing property management that Kate's going to enlighten us on. Okay. So we got Bob Wiesner who asks, how are you using or going to use artificial intelligence tools in order to improve JWB property management? I've never heard of AI. Have you heard of AI?
No. What does that stand for?
How are we? I'm not sure if you are ready to talk about that. And I know there's a few initiatives. Do you want to talk about that one?
Take a stab.
All right, I love it.
We are testing this out right now on our leasing side of things and using AI to help on the front end for phone calls and ironing out questions so that our leasing agents' time can be able to be better used and create efficiencies. So we're starting. We're dipping our toes in. We're not going to go head first, but it's something that we're starting. And right now we're starting on the leasing side of things. We're going to see how that can help them rent more homes, find better quality leads and prospects. And so I think that's where I would say we're starting, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, it's been an initiative for us to take a step forward on the AI side ever since last business planning. Even before that, of course, we took some measured steps from a company perspective to lean in. But, last October, as the guys and I were sitting down, we said, this is the time for us to make some big investments in there. When you're leading a ship of 140 individuals and impacts tens of thousands of people, you got to do it in the right way. And so for us, I know that, was it last week we switched our phones over?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. That is a decision based on using artificial intelligence to help us be able to serve our residents and our clients better. I think about things like call recordings. Call recordings will now have the ability for us to not just record the call to ensure great service, but it will also allow us to save time as our managers and our supervisors and our leaders are training our team. So there is so much that we can do on the property management side, and I think we'll continue to make investments going forward. So, Bob, thank you so much for that question.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, we've got Not Your Average Guest. What property management software do you use? Apollo, Buildium, Propertyware, or excuse me, Appfolio. Gosh, my eyesight has gotten so much worse. Oh man, I'm feeling.
I got you. I can take that.
Go for it.
So we are unique. So there's not many businesses out there like us that sell turnkey investment properties, manage, do construction, sell homes, have private lending. So we used to use Propertyware, but that was just the property management side of things. Our experience with Propertyware was okay, but then we had every department was in a different CRM. And so the company invested a lot of money, probably 5 years ago at this point into Salesforce to basically build our own CRM out to where we can have everything in one place, create a lot more efficiencies and be more aligned, have a lot more automation. So we use Salesforce, and that has allowed us to have every single department within one space and have a lot more transparency and visibility, which has been really great.
100%. Great question. And thank you, Kate. So our friend HD says, do you charge a separate project fee on maintenance items?
That's a good question.
I can take that one.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
Yeah. So on maintenance markups, when you've got a vendor that's coming out, we do not charge a maintenance item. Now, sometimes there are construction projects that require a maintenance markup, and that's really due to the time and the scope of the maintenance item. So property turns are a good example. Property turns, there is going to be a markup because in a property turn, there's usually 3, 4, 5 different trades that are all getting in a very short amount of time. And there's management time, real management time to be able to do that. So there is a project management fee on items that require construction management services. There is $0 on any maintenance.
Exactly. Yep.
The MVP, Lee Bishop asks, when maintenance or work orders come up, do I have a choice of who I can select for cost? Or do you have one person and I do not have a choice?
That's a great question. We have a large vendor base, and we try to make sure to have multiple vendors within each trade. Something really unique to JWB is because of the market that we have here and how much work we're able to provide to a lot of our vendors, they have very low pricing for us that they're able to meet because we're able to provide them a lot of volume. So a lot of our vendors that we actually work with, yes, the answer is yes, we have multiple vendors for each trade, but we usually have line item pricing. So we would know if HVAC vendor 1 is quoting this and it's agreed to our line item pricing, then HVAC vendor 2 should be quoting the exact same thing. So that's typically how we work with that there. There may be 1 or 2 specialty trades where we only have one vendor for, and we know from like just being in the industry that they are the lowest cost, best option for us. But anything that is a large scope of work, we're usually always providing 2 quotes for our clients. So if it's something you're having to ask and say, I want another opinion, we should hopefully already have that second opinion for you.
Yep. And I know a lot of times we'll get asked the question about, can I use my own subs? Can I use my own vendors? Can I fix it myself?
Yeah.
What should the appropriate response be for on the property management side?
Well, we would be telling them that there's probably no way they're going to beat out the cost of the vendors that we use because, we're able to have that really competitive pricing, and we do this over and over and over. We manage 5,700 homes. We are the experts when it comes to that and what you need. And we know the right vendor at the right cost that you're going to use. And it's going to be very difficult and time consuming for you to find the same thing.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of liability for you to fix items yourself or to hire your own people who might not be licensed and insured. So if you are getting prices that are somehow lower than JWB's, our experience is most of the time they're not checking all those boxes off. And then there's liability there for you. There's liability there for us as a property management company as well. So kind of standard answer is the reason you're probably coming to a property management company like JWB is because you want them to handle everything.
Right.
You want it to be passive.
Right.
And it's just not as simple as, hey, listen, if I can get a lower quote on this one item, can I use my guy? Many investors don't understand the liability that they take on and the property management company takes on. So, a standard answer probably will be no for a property management company that has been around for a long time and operates. We have to hit a standard as a JWB property management that not every other property management company has to hit. When you only manage 30 properties and you can fly a little bit under the radar in some things, you maybe can cut some corners. So keep that in mind. If a property management company tells you, no, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to do your own work or you're not allowed to use your own vendor, it's a conversation to be had for sure, but it might be in your best interest to go with that property management company. You could probably get it done for less than you. So, and then Nadeem, the shop man, says, ask the property management company, how do they set rent? So how do we set rent?
Well, so very similar to what I was talking about at Renewal, we work off CMAs, so comparable market analysis. That's looking at what's rented within this market in the last X amount of months with the same bed bath count, square footage, is there a garage, etc., and then pulling it from that. So like true market analysis is how we set rent.
Okay, love it. I love it. And it's really cool when you work with a property management company that has some scale, because rent comps are hard to find. Sales comps are easy to find. They're on the multiple listing service, but not every home that's rented is added to the multiple listing service. So it's hard to find rent comps. The best way to find a rent comp is to work with a property management company that is renting homes by the dozens in that neighborhood. Every single month. So when you work with a property management company at scale, using rent comparables, comp is another name for a comparable, using a rent comparable, getting that answer on what your home should rent for is very easy. If you work, with a company that doesn't have scale, it's going to be a lot harder. All right, we got one last easy question here, and then we're going to get into this last topic, and we'll save some time for topics here. Can you tell everybody what your last name is?
My last name is Winter, formerly Taylor. Just got married, so I'm still adjusting.
Did I not even introduce you in the beginning as Kate Winter? Did I?
I don't know what you said, but you definitely introduced me. It was really nice.
Oh, cool. Well, this is
Kate, Kate Winter.
We have many amazing Kates here
lots
at
of Kates.
JWB. This is Kate Winter. There's Caitlin Kitchens and Kate Sutherland as well.
There's more than that too.
Yes, that's true.
We got a lot of Kates.
All right, so Kate Winter. All right, so thought this would be a great opportunity for us to shed some light on something that we haven't talked really about on the show. It's never really come up yet, but it is really a critical piece of how we deliver, I think, a better experience for the investor, the resident, and ultimately better returns on investment. And it's very different than how most property management companies are set up. It comes down to how we prioritize relationships and set up our team in a way, our communication within our team and within residents and whatnot. Can you shed some light on what we do that's different than other property management companies and why we do it that way?
Yeah, sure. I'll start big picture and then we'll get more and more granular. So something already that's unique, like a lot of property management companies, the property manager themselves is that communicator with the owner. They're the communicator with the resident, and they're also the one renting out that unit, right? So if there's leads coming through, they may be showing that, working with that person, working with people who don't work out, et cetera. We start with three main departments. We have our leasing department. So they are really focused and specialized in making sure that we are finding the perfect prospects for these properties, making sure that they're qualified, and they're salespeople. Like that is what they are born and bred to do, right? And so they're a separate team there. So that's something that is somewhat unique, right? And then the second part of that is we have our property management department. So that's the team that I manage. And that is once a resident or a prospect at that time is qualified, paid up, put a deposit down, and ready to move in, their expenses are paid, they then fall into the hands of the property management department. So the property management department at JWB is, we cover everything that is resident facing once they move into that property. So you've heard a lot already. We are that maintenance team for them. We are there if we need to collect rent, obviously. We are renewing leases. We are their therapists sometimes. If they're unhappy with the neighbor, they're calling us and we're talking to them. And so that's property management. And then we have our service department. And really that is the side of the business that is working directly with our owners and our clients. So again, something that is unique is sometimes when you're in a property management business, the person that you are speaking with is the one that is on the phone with the resident doing maintenance and handling any work orders with, and then also communicating with you. So that is a little bit unique and different within JWB. And really the idea behind it is we believe that there are different types of skill sets needed for those three different departments, and even more granular within those departments as well, because we want to be able to have them get the best result. And there are different type of people that are needed for that. And so that's why we structure it in that way. I'll go more into I guess our property management team is something that, well, on the maintenance team themselves, we have our dispatchers. So they are fully focused on incoming maintenance, right? So we talked a lot about that at the beginning. Troubleshooting is really important. So making sure when applicable, they're troubleshooting, making sure that they're assigning those work orders to the right vendors, checking anything like warranty. Those are people that need to be detail oriented. They need to be able to show empathy on the phone as well as a sense of urgency, because these are people who are calling in about their homes, the place that they live. And it could be as minor as I have a little drip under my sink or my house is flooding. And we want them to give that right response and to handle that appropriately, right? And then we have our maintenance coordinators, and they are the ones who are assigned the work order and working with that resident from there and that vendor from there to make sure we get that problem solved. So a little bit different, right? They are more, okay, we're going to get to the finish line, where dispatch is making sure that we are focusing on those details. We are checking the warranties. We're making sure you know that you're prioritized, and we're letting you know what next steps are. So that's our maintenance team. It's even unique that we have specialized roles within a maintenance team. And then our property management team, we're also unique there in that you've heard us talk about our main metrics on the property management side of things. And that's rent collection, that's renewals, and that's resident experience. So within our property management department, we have roles that focus on each of those things. And so they're working in these mini teams. And if you're a renter of ours, you're going to have a team dedicated just to you that are focused on those three things. And one, we have the renewal person. And I think that that's where we call them our renewal coordinators. Fancy. Their goal is to renew leases as much as possible, right? And it is a game changer when you have someone who's focused on, laser focused on renewing that lease versus if they're juggling a bunch of different things at once. Even if we had property managers doing maintenance, which is how most companies work as well, as property managers do maintenance in addition to all of these things. It allows them to perform at a higher level, create more efficiencies, and be able to provide a better experience for that resident, because they're kind of the expert in that area. I think an important thing I do like to say, though, is they're all cross-trained to cover for each other, because we never want a resident to call in and say, oh, they're not available. No, I can help you renew your lease right now. I'm rambling, but here we go. So I'm not even done. We also have a teammate focused on rent. So they're focused on calling any resident with a balance, making sure that we try our hardest to work with them. If we're getting to a point where we have to file an eviction, making sure that we are prioritizing that, we are working with them, letting them know next steps. Again, an expert in that. And then we have a teammate who's just truly focused on resident experience. So they're the ones who are working to get that NPS score up, working to make sure if there's any escalations, I'm stepping in and we're making sure we're taking care of you every step of the way so that you're happy in your home. And once your lease is coming to an end, it makes that job a lot easier for that renewal coordinator. So that's how we're set up and structured.
Way to go. Way to go. You nailed it. I knew once I get you talking a little bit about that, like you're going to share what's on your heart. And, so taking all that and thinking from the lens of a rental property owner who's about to ask these questions, the big things that I'm picking up on here are two big things. I'm thinking about specialization, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about that specialization then allows us to perform better and to do better in these metrics.
Yes.
I think that's where this specialization really shows up. So and as I'm starting to think about some of these amazing metrics, Kate gave me some of our amazing metrics. So prior to the show, right? I think about like our rent collection. Our rent collection is a little bit over 98%.
Yes.
A little bit over
98.6 point.
industry average. How about that? Industry average is about 90%. So, if you are working with a property management company who is wearing a million different hats and is not specialized, you should be expecting about 90% rent collection. By specialization, we're able to have the best of the best on our team in the right role, becoming experts in their role. And then through those activities and that alignment and that structure, we're able to deliver 98.64% rent collection, right? Think about, I was thinking about percentage of work orders solved over the phone. Do we really think that if you're a property manager and you're renting the home out, you're collecting rent, you're managing the home, that you can also have a metric to solve a certain percentage of your work orders over the phone?
Oh gosh.
No. But because there's specialization, we're able to save investors over $380,000 just in 1 year from that specialization. So there's a number of different ways to kind of skin the cat when it comes to property management. There's the old way and there's a new and different way.
Right.
And specialization is one thing that allows us to do that. There's also a different component here. So what's different from the way we've structured it? There's specialization. There's another thing too. And it's who talks to the owner.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So on our property management team, Kate, do you ever talk to our investors?
Never.
Well, it's
Except
networking. Today in the networking events, right? But in your daily activities at JWB,
Correct.
property
No, not when
management-
I'm usually in the office.
Right. Our client service team does. There is another robust team here that is there to serve our clients. Can you explain that dynamic and why it works well?
Yeah, I think if you hear this, you could maybe have a little bit of a, what about, I'm only talking to someone who doesn't have their hands on the property. They're not talking with the resident. They don't have eyes on the home with that work order. Maybe you're a little hesitant, but I think it's two things. One, right? We talked about the specialization, but something that is so important to us is that transparency and great internal communication within our departments. We are all on the same floor. We are up and talking all of the time. And we always encourage hey, if you have a question, don't email them, just go walk up to them. They're literally right there, right? And so I think that's something that is really important to us and something, we talked about earlier with our new not new, we've been in Salesforce for a long time, but everything is visible to everyone. So if, our portfolio manager is on the phone with a client, one of you, and you want to know what happened in 2015, they can literally go to that property. They can look in 2015. They can show you any work orders. So it is fully visible and transparent to everyone. And to us, we care very much about our relationship with that service team and making sure that we are communicating well. Something we actually just did with them a couple of weeks ago was a workshop. We did a workshop on work order approvals of, hey, here's how we're currently submitting approvals to you all. What's working? What's not? What information could we provide more to you to set you up for success, to get that answers needed that clients are going to have right when you call them on the phone? So it's very important to us that we're working very well together.
100%. The amount of collaboration, it comes down to our team and our culture, which at the end of the day, we believe that's the reason why people are more successful investing with JWB. And that team and that culture should also be reflected in the answers that you ask your property manager. And if you want to think about the dynamic of specialization in your minds, the way it might make sense is if there is specialization, I should require a better metric performance.
Yes.
And that's how it pays off for you. Okay, we've got 5 minutes and we've got 14 questions. So Pablo does this for me. It's rapid fire for questions.
Okay.
I stink at it because I'm talkative.
Okay.
But let's see how well you do.
Clearly.
All right. So we've got Michelle. Michelle, welcome. New name. Does the maintenance markups benefit the investor, residents, or management company?
Management company.
Management company. That's why you got to watch out for it. It's not alignment of goals. Eric asked, you mentioned how long work orders are open. Is there a time tracking, days, hours to resolve?
Yes, we track average days that a work order is opened. It is 6.7 year to date. It's a number we're really proud of. Last year was 8.2. You know, this not being quick, but I do like to point out that there are some work orders that take a long time. Like if we're requiring a permit from the city, a health department gets involved, those are things that can take months. So when you have 1 or 2 outliers like that, and you can still keep your average days at 6.7, we are quite proud of that.
It's incredible. The world famous composer asks, what is the process JWB uses to get leases renewed?
Can't be quick with this one.
Can't be quick.
We reach out 6 months before their lease is ending. We try to get them to renew. We renew at market rent. We try to renew 1, 2, or 3 year leases. We push for long-term leases, and we try to overcome any objection that they may give us and see what we can do to make them happy and make them stay.
Wonderful. I'll add on to it.
Okay.
Just take a little bit more time because I think it's critical. I think it comes down to understanding that people don't want to move. People don't want to move.
Yes.
Right. The idea that people move every single year or two is a sign of a broken system somewhere along the lines. So if we know that people don't like to move, because I don't like to move, you don't like to move, nobody likes to move,
No.
and people love our city, then we can start from a place of how can we create a better resident experience so that people won't think of moving, and we create a culture and an experience where it's very easy for people to choose to stay because they believe it creates value in their life to stay. And Kate and her team are the architects of that. Nadeem asks, does the management company keep a portion of the owner's balance as a reserve to pay for unexpected costs, or do they distribute the entire balance each month?
Great question. You want to take it?
No, go for it.
Okay. Well, they always have a maintenance escrow on file. At least we do. Other property management companies may work differently, but that is something that you may want to ask to know how much they'd be holding. For us, it's $500. Right.
$500 per property. That's right. And that's there to make it a great experience for you. And you always get transparency as far as how we spend your money. If it's below that $500 threshold, if it's above that $500 threshold, we need to get owner approval. So look for answers like that when you're asking your property management companies out there. Anonymous attendee says, I got on really late. Is this recorded for replay? Yes, it is. You can go and find it on our YouTube channel. Just search Not Your Average Investor Show on YouTube. You'll find all of our recordings. You can also go to our website and sign up to receive our information. And then you'll get on our email newsletter list. So you can go to jwbrealestatecapital.com/report is actually a great place to go because you'll download a report that is going to be very, very helpful for you. You can go there, or you can go to the homepage, jwbrealestatecapital.com, put your information in. You'll get the replay link on the newsletter coming out next week as well. All right. Funny how I talked to you about being fast on these lists. The Patriarch says, this has been a year of turnovers for us. We're shocked by the renovation costs at turnover time. Do you perform any intra-lease inspections to ensure the residents are taking good care of our property?
Yeah, that's a good one. We have toyed with this. We have done this in the past, and what it requires is a lot of time and effort and cost to complete these inspections to our clients, and found that there was no change because we track everything, right? Like we love data. We love analyzing everything. So basically took a pool of properties where we did do this, see what their turn costs were, see what their average maintenance costs are. We did not see a difference. So we found it to just be an added expense to pay for an inspection. However, if there are owners out there that have that, that worry and that concern, it's something that we obviously can set up. And we rely a lot on our vendors too. We have teammates out in the field working on, vacant projects. And if they drive by a JW home and they see a concern, we're relying on them to share that with us. We have neighbors, right? And so we have a lot of eyes out there that can provide that information to us if there are red flags.
And sometimes, when it rains, it pours, and Ken has been a client for a long, long time. And sometimes I feel it, when it rains, it pours. Sometimes you have a few turnovers. Sometimes they're a little bit more expensive. So I get you there. We first need to look at what can we do to prevent that?
Yeah.
Is there a trend? Is there something that we can do? So we've gone through those analyses and looked at inspections, and we did it with our own properties, like Kate mentioned. So the causality of a turn does not come down to inspections throughout the life of the resident in our experience. However, like Kate mentioned, if it's something that's really important to you, we can arrange for that for your inspections. The MVP asks, do you have somebody assigned to you or your account to be your advocate to alleviate the anxiety of being kept in the dark of your portfolio? I think this is the MVP setting us up here for to us look like rock stars. You want me to take this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the MVP. I love you, buddy. Thank you for being here. What he's talking about is making sure that you have a client service representative in addition to a property management teammate who is here to be an advocate for you, for your portfolio, to look not just at the transactions that have happened that month, the rent collection, if you have any maintenance items or whatnot, to not just look at upcoming lease renewals that we can plan for, to not just look at reserves that you have, which is important, to also look at big picture, are we hitting your return on investment goals, and to help you make decisions to move towards that financial outcome that you have. So that's a whole other show, and that's a whole other part of JWB, and that's on the client service side, which is where we spend a lot of our time talking, from the investor lens. Yeah. Kate runs the property management side, which is that same type of experience dedicated to our residents. Anything you want to add there?
Oh,
nope.
You nailed it.
All right, cool. All right. The Maven, Leslie Wilson, asks, why does JWB keep the rent the same of year 3 of a lease when they raise it for year 2?
Interesting. Well, we've changed this in the past. We actually used to, originally when we started doing long-term leases, it was the same for 3 years. And then we decided to, okay, let's increase it, but on the 3rd year. So year 1 and year 2, it would stay the same. And then year 3, it would increase. And then we changed it to, okay, well, let's get that increase sooner. Let's have that increase start on year 2, keep it the same for year 3, because we do still want there to be an incentive for someone to move in and choose that 3-year renewal of like, hey, this is a guarantee that your rent is going to stay this amount. We think that it is better for your home to stay occupied than signing a 2-year lease over a 3-year lease to guarantee a certain increase there.
100%. I think big picture here, it's all about creating a win across the board.
Right.
And what we understand is that when your residents stay in your home for a long period of time, you have less maintenance costs, less vacancy costs, less property management fees. You end up winning on your investment. But in order to get people to stay a long time, we want to create an incentive for the resident as well. Right. And so that happy medium where everybody can win is that long-term lease. The only time that residents will find that their rent stays the same year over year is when they commit to a 3-year lease. And when they do that, we're going to keep the rent the same in the 3rd year. So it's a matter of making sure that everybody wins together. Mm-hmm. And what we know is long-term resident stays lead to better returns for investors and better experiences for residents. Mm-hmm. Guys, you have some incredible questions. Thank you for sending those in. What we will do after the show, because we are out of time, is we'll make sure that our team can reach back out to those folks who have questions and get you those answers. But I want to say thank you to the audience. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking an hour out of your day. It is never lost on myself, Kate, Pablo, our entire team here, that this community is special, and you guys make the time here. Next show, we have our quarterly market outlook. We are doing the Q4 Jacksonville real estate market outlook. So I hope that you tune in next Tuesday at 12:30. Kate Winter, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your insights, who you are, what drives you, what drives JWB. I think you just enlighten a whole lot of people out there to have better conversations with property managers. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me.
All right. And we got one thing to say on the way out. You know what it is? All right. 1, 2, 3. Don't be average.